Up? It's your boy Coach Hyde coming at you with some life science stuff. All right. I tried to make this video earlier, but my kid was acting nuts. But anyway, so what we're talking about here is the cell cycle. This video is dedicated to the cell cycle, which is a series of events that unfold through the life of the cell. So this is made up of primarily two things, which is cell division and interphase. So just real quick before we go through that, I just want to give you a real quick example of how this life cycle works out, how it plays out. So let's say we're talking about a human life cycle, the series of events of human life. We'll keep it very simple. So we got, um, fertilization, or your time spent in the womb, right? Very small part of your life. We got your time as an infant. We got your time as a toddler. We got your time as a youth. Got your time in adolescence. Right, that's puberty, stuff like that. And then finally you got your time after that. After that, technically you are biologically an adult. Now you're not legally an adult until you're 18 years old. But biologically, after the period of adolescence, of puberty, you're technically biologically mature. So the rest of your life cycle is an adult. So this is real quick, very vague, but the point of this was just so you can see how this life cycle pattern worked. And if you notice, each section has a different size box that represents the amount of time spent in this phase. You're a baby, you're fertilized in the womb for 8 to 10 months. Very small amount of time. Infancy, I don't know, maybe a year, 2 years. Toddler, 2 to 5, something like that. Your youth up to adolescence. Most of your life is spent as an adult. So the length of these things represents the amount of time in this phase. So now that we got that, let's go back to the cell. All right, so let's say we start right here. All right, we got a cell. That circle is a cell. The cell could be coming from a pre-existing cell. All cells come from pre-existing cells, right? So it's going to start its cycle. The first stage of its cycle, right, is called G1. This is gap 1. I don't know why it's called gap. I guess it's the first gap of the life cycle. I think if it was called growth 1, that would make a little more sense because literally the primary purpose of this stage in the life cycle of the cell is just to grow, to get bigger. Right, that's it. Next we will enter the next phase. All right. This is the S phase. All right, you probably can't read that, so I'll swap colors to blue. Right, this is synthesis. Okay, so what we're going to do in synthesis is we're going to replicate chromosomes. We're going to represent, been a long day. We're going to replicate chromosomes, right? We're going to reproduce, we're going to make copies of them so that each cell can have its own chromosome. Now, to do this, we got to copy the sequences of DNA that are in the chromosomes, right? So we got to have a copy of the DNA for one cell, we got to have a copy of the DNA for the next cell, because this is going to produce 2 cells if it's mitosis. So that's synthesis. Next we have kind of our G2 period. This is gap 2, growth 2, whatever you want to call it. So this is a little shorter period than G1 or synthesis. This is kind of our final preparation before we divide to make new cells. So we're going to grow a little bit, but not much. Primarily, we're going to be copying organelles and making sure everything is ready, has copies to go for cell division. Then we're going to enter cell division. Cell division is made up of two parts. We have mitosis, which is made up of four parts. We have prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. This is the different stages of mitosis, which will be another video. Then we have cytokinesis. We'll talk about cytokinesis later. So, mitosis, which is prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, this is specifically talking about splitting the nucleus, where the DNA is. And then you have this process of cytokinesis. So as the nucleus splits and buds into two new nuclei, the rest of the cell itself will kind of pinch off, so you're left with two new cells. So specifically, if you're talking about the nucleus, mitochondria, if you're talking about the entire cytoplasm of the cell and stuff tearing, that is cytokinesis. So now your cell is back here. We have two daughter cells. They could jump right back into the cell cycle and start the whole process over, or they may be programmed to die. If they're programmed to die, this is this thing called apoptosis, which means programmed cell death. Right? If your cells decide they don't want to die, right? Like, I'm too tough to die. That's what your cells do. If they are able to bypass the programmed cell death and maybe jump back into the cell replication, well, that's not cool. That's cancer. You want your cells to die when they're supposed to do. You don't want to kill them too early, but you want them to die when they're supposed to. All right, so that's the cell cycle, guys. Catch y'all in the next one.